So in Iran, some online practices are possible, even if that's risky. North Korea, digital activity is far more restricted than Iran and carries higher risk. The state promotes the ideal of sacrificial woman and expect woman's duty as a mother in their family and as a worker in their nation.
If you look at a lot of North Korean defectors in the UK and South Korea and other parts of the world, they don't actually involved in proactive activism. In the UK, actually, a lot of people don't like it because they want to stay quiet, keep quiet.
People like me who are not from North Korea or Iran, we know nothing about these countries. What we know about these countries is when we put the word in the Google and you know how the algorithms work.
If you look at, feminist literature and, for instance, the social sciences, it's pretty much, dominated by developed Western scholars.
Initiative.
It's a wonderful initiative.
The GlobalSouth network opened new horizons for judicial cooperations.
GlobalSouth network provide a platform for meaningful dialogue and collaboration, fostering efforts to build a more equitable and resilient legal landscape.
GSN network continues to expand areas of activity, further strengthening its impact and reach.
The universal concept of justice compels us to join our efforts, and this is, I believe, the forum for promoting the same goal.
Well deserved for the hectic activity you have made. I am astonished, I am amazed, I was impressed.
May I at the outset commend you, Dr. Ayad, for the immense work that you're doing in the GSN. The GlobalSouth Network is a much admired initiative.
كانت جزء لا يتجزأ من الدولة العثمانية.
We are being criticized for doing our job and for upholding the federal constitution. Like I have said in the past, I will not bend to such lame pressures and insinuations.
It's commendable. South Network focuses on all disciplines and regions, creating a bridge between academia, civil society, legal community, etc.
Quiero expresar mi sincero agradecimiento al Dr. Naumen Riad.
Dr. Naumen Riad, the founder and convener of the GlobalSouth Network. His visionary leadership has established a vibrant forum where judges, academics, and practitioners from around the world can share and exchange ideas. Initiatives like today's dialogue allow us to compare jurisprudence, share best practices, and develop common principles. This has the potential to contribute to transnational standards in procedure and enhance administrative law globally.
I would like to point out that Dr. Riad's initiatives have not only enriched comparative judicial dialogue, have also fostered mutual understanding of the diverse challenges that courts face in safeguarding the rule of law and constitutionalism.
We can rule when we want in the cases which are brought to us by citizens and residents. In the EU, this openness of mind is increased by the fact we apply, in some cases, same norms from the EU treaties or the EU directives or regulations.
Great. So
yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Good night in my time, but yeah, hello, everyone. So it's my great pleasure to welcome you, the 44th seminar in the Phase 4 of the International Interdisciplinary PhD in Progress Weekly Seminar Series, organized by the Global South Network. So before we start, I'd like to thank Dr. Nauman Riet, lecturer in law at Leicester Law School and the founder and chief convener of the Global South Network. So I know that he has dedicated his relentless effort to organizing and leading these inspiring weekly sessions that continue to bring together the scholars and practitioners from various disciplines and regions. So let me introduce myself first. My name is Moohyung Cho, and I am an assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and International Relations at Ewha Women's University in South Korea. So actually, I studied political science in the US, and then I got a PhD in political science at Duke University in 2020. And then my research interests include comparative political institutions and judicial politics and the democracy and autocracy. And specifically, I'm interested in judicial independence and the rule of law in authoritarian regimes and developing democracies. And along with Nauman and Professor Rona Smith, I served as a co-editor of the book titled Judicial Independence in Transitional Democracies, which was published early this year at Routledge. And I'm happy to chair today's session, and I'm looking forward to hearing about the presenters' research and their ideas and the rich discussion that will follow. All right, so let me introduce two discussants and the guest speaker for today's session. First discussant is Dr. Hyun-Joo Lim, and she is the principal academic in sociology at the School of Law and Society at Bournemouth University. Her research interests include the human rights and activism of North Korean defectors, gender, identity, women's health, and socially marginalized individuals and groups in the UK. Currently, she is leading the project funded by the British Academy and Levelhulme, titled How Effective Are Menopause Policies at Universities in England, which examines how effectively universities' menopause policies are translated into practice. The second discussant is Dr. Devran Gulel, and she completed her PhD at the University of Portsmouth, where she was fully funded. She previously worked at the Lund University as the Jean Monnet Fellow of Turkey, where she conducted research on the Nordic welfare model and gender equality policies. Her interests encompass feminism and gender politics within a global context, welfare states and policies, women's labor market participation and workplace representation, human rights in authoritarian regimes, and misogyny in political discourse and the judiciary and law enforcement. Since April 2023, she's been working in a multi-partner EU Horizon project titled Realizing Girls' and Women's Inclusion, Representation, and Empowerment. And finally, it's my great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today. Hazel Yeoun Choi is a second-year PhD candidate in politics and international relations at Cardiff University. Her doctoral research examines women's everyday resistance under authoritarian regimes with a comparative focus on Iran and North Korea. Her broader academic interests include feminist theory, political resistance, gendered authoritarianism, political apathy, and the regional dynamics in the Middle East and East Asia. And she has an experience in the defense industry before her PhD studies. Today, Hazel will present a part of her PhD project titled Women's Everyday Resistance in Long-Standing Authoritarian Regimes with Cult Leaders, the Cases of Iran and North Korea. She will speak for about 30 to 35 minutes, followed by the 5 to 10 minutes of comments from each discussant. And if time permits, we will open the floor for a 10 to 15 minutes Q&A session with the audience. All right, so Hazel, we're delighted to have you with us today, and the screen is now yours.
Thank you very much for having me. It's really great opportunity to be here. And I'm Hazel Choi, and I'm a second-year PhD student from South Korea. And today I'm going to talk about my PhD thesis that already title has been introduced. My idea is very simple. So women turn authoritarian control into leverage. So today I will introduce my rationale of this case studies and literature review and describe my approach and ethics and the methods. This would be such a great opportunity for me to get some feedback and hope the feedback would help me to develop my further research, because at the moment I am my second year of the PhD and I'm starting my field work. So would be a really great opportunity for me to get some feedback and that would help shape my further research. Personally, I began this research because I was struck by how much existing studies on Iran and North Korea focus on issues like nuclear programs and securities, while so few explore how politics affects women's lives and everyday human experiences. So this gap made me question why the human aspect, especially women's experiences under these regimes, has been largely overlooked. So my personal background and experiences have also shaped my motivation to pursue this research, as I have a long interest in understanding how political structures influence individuals' life, resilience, and the sense of agency. So this picture is AI generated picture, but I think it's quite good to show overall of my research. So you can see there's two women, two lady, and there's an Iranian flag and North Korean flag, and seems like they're somewhere in a jail. And there is a sunrise you can see over there, which means hope for them. And this Iranian lady over here, she's holding a cell phone, which means she can access to social media or online platforms, but she's wearing hijab, headscarf, but she's showing her fringe over here, which I'd like to show she still has her own identity, and this is probably a way of her everyday resistance to the regime. And there's a North Korean lady right here, and she doesn't have cell phone, and they're looking at each other and they're sharing some things, I could tell. So I'd like to show this picture as a good example of my research. So my research questions are like this. So how women in authoritarian regimes with cult leaders experience and respond to state-imposed gender roles and the restrictions. And what forms of resistance, if any, are available to women in these regimes? And I'd like to focus on everyday forms of resistance, not participating massive protest on the street, or not focusing on some well-known activists who are interviewed multiple times from the Western media. So I'd like to talk about a bit of my rationale. So I use a case study approach following by In. So In says case studies fit when we ask how and why, and when we cannot control what happens, and when the topic is contemporary. That matches with my project, I think, because my questions are, how do women resist? And why do certain forms appear? And I cannot control events on the ground. I'm studying what is happening now and not a close past event as well. Another reason for case study fits is the phenomenon context link. So the line between what women do and the political context is very blurry in this context. And regime rules and daily life are tightly connected. In Iran and North Korea, women's lives and identities are bound to state ideology and control. So without context, context such as propaganda, religious and political rules and surveillance, we cannot really read their actions very well because the boundary between the phenomenon and the context is very fuzzy, blurred. So I thought the case study is very appropriate method. So it let me keep actions and context together, trace the episodes in detail, and explain not only what happens, but why it happens in that way. I chose Iran and North Korea using theoretical replication. That means I chose two cases that share important features but also differ in clear ways. So I look for patterns that repeat across both, and also I look for points where that pattern breaks. There are some similarities of these two countries. Both states say they reject neoliberalism, yet they use some market practices. North Korea informally tolerates black markets. Iran promotes women's economic participation when the economy is under pressure. Both countries have heavy sanctions that restrict trade and increase isolation. Both countries seek distance from Western influence voluntarily, and both control women's roles through propaganda and policy, making gender a key side of the rules. There are definitely some differences. Iran is a religious authoritarian regime, whereas North Korea is a secular totalitarian regime. Internet access is also very different. So in Iran, some online practices are possible, even if that's risky. But North Korea, digital activity is like far more restricted than Iran and carries higher risk. These contrasts help me to see when and how everyday strategies can work and when they cannot. And they sit at the center of the global debates on the women's rights, yet everyday and ground level comparisons are not still very limited or studied in academia. I also considered some like practical parts, so access, time, data quality, and my own skills. So I lived in Iran for a year and a half. I speak some Persian and I understand part of their culture, which helps me to approach some community with care. About North Korea, I'm not from North Korea, but I'm from South Korea, and we share same language, and my grandparents are from North Korea, so I grew up with some cultural familiarity. Access is definitely not easy in this either case, but these factors like make careful work possible. So I thought case study is a right fit. Let me explain about a little bit of literature review I've done so far. And first, it's like based on the Levitsky's work, both Iran and North Korea are considered as a full authoritarian regime. That is my starting point. And the next is leaders and loyalty. So both systems build loyalty through cult leaders with tight control of media and ritual. North Korea is a very classical case of a cult of personality. Iran does not look the same, but there is still highly personal rules around the supreme leaders. His influence shapes like official decisions a lot of times. And war, sanctions, and pragmatism. So both countries live in economic pressure from war and sanctions, economic sanctions. They balance ideology with pragmatism. So, for example, other like modern autocrats sometimes use prestige reforms to impress Western donors or international donors or Western donors. For example, like gender quotas. Rwanda and Uganda are often cited as the cases where the quotas raises women's numbers in politics, for example. Iran and North Korea mostly do not do this kind of gender washing technique. They signal distance from Western norms all the times. Even so, both Even so, like both have adopted kind of like limited market style measures like authoritarian neoliberalism. So after the Korean War and the Iran-Iraq War, women were pushed into workforce to support the economy. In Iran, rising prices and post-war rebuilding encouraged women's paid work. In North Korea, women's labor also became very central to survival and reconstruction. And control activism. So Authoritarian states manage women's activism by cutting off their funding, centralizing media, and criminalizing dissent. They police gender norms through dressing rules, family laws, and limits on movement. Women's bodies and care work kind of became a key sites of both control and quiet resistance. So why this matters for my research? So this is the context where I will look for everyday resistance. I will track where small acts appear, what risks and resources shape them, and whether they reinforce the order, whether they create small shifts or open space for change. So let me explain about previous research and the research gap. For example, Iran. So after 1979, the Islamic Revolution, the Islamic government tightened their gender rules in family life, dress code, and public space. Iran-Iraq war deepened the Islamization as well, and also under the Ahmadinejad presidency, the morality police became very stricter. There are several complicated points that Iranian women may find very difficult to navigate in securing their rights. So their legal framework is very ambiguous. For example, if their religious leader says something that almost considered as a legal law, even though that is not written in law. And the state uses gender ideology in very visible ways, including women's bodies in propaganda. Sanctions produce gender responses, such as calls to be economic patriots, call women as economic patriots. And many people avoid the word feminism because in their cultural norms, feminism is very reluctant term, even though they are doing feminist work. However, in recent years, there have been repeated mass protests, such as Mahsa Amini protest in 2022. So the research on Iran is very rich in terms of public protests and the protests on social media, but still not much studies covered everyday resistance and everyday controls in schools, workplaces, in their family, and the communities. And next is North Korea. So North Korea states proclaims gender equality. They said they have gender equality, which we can find in their law, while North Korea still maintains strict patriarchal and the surveillance structures. The state promotes the ideal of sacrificial woman and expects woman's duty as a mother in their family and as a worker in their nation. However, from some media recently, North Korean women started using terms like light bulb during daytime and housekeeper to emphasize the inability of their husband. Additionally, since the 1990s economic hardship, North Korean women started to take leading roles in household survival and leading black market economy. There are not that many studies have been conducted regarding small everyday resistance inside North Korea, especially how women quietly manage roles under the risk. So as I introduced earlier, not that many studies have been conducted of grounded view of women's everyday resistance across these two settings. So my project asks what small acts appear in their daily life? What conditions shape them? What effects do they have? Do they get community support? The effect will be, is it reinforcement, small shifts, or openings? So let me explain a little bit of my theoretical framework. So my theoretical base is post-structuralist feminism and post-colonial work. So from Foucault, I use the idea that power works through discourse, norms, and everyday practice, not only through law or violence. And from Butler, I use performativity and resignification. So gender is made by repeated acts, and repeating differently can shift meaning. From Nicola Pratt and Mahmoud, I learned to read gender and power in context. There's no such like universal templates fits this all places. So this means that I will look closely at language, rules, and routines that shape both constraints and possibility. Also, how specific settings make certain actions legible as resistance. Let me talk about my conceptual framework a bit. So first is subaltern and agency. I focus on people who have little public voice or former power. So I do not treat them only as victims. Like I listen for how they act within tight limits. My aim is to center their words and practices and to notice what they can do, even when the space is very small and limited. And second is everyday resistance from James Scott. These everyday resistance are very small, routine acts that avoid or soften control. For example, taking a longer route to skip a checkpoint, using coded speech so only friends understand, adjusting dress to signal belongings, or even the Iranian woman wearing hijab but showing their fringe. Each act is very small, but sometimes these kind of many small acts actually add up. Oh, and third is women's everyday resistance under authoritarianism in different countries. So I build on work from practice places like Afghanistan and Iraq. Those studies show how gender, family roles, movement rules, and bureaucracy shape what is possible in that context. So overall, this ideas, conceptual framework will help me to ask when small acts matter, for whom, and under what conditions. So next is my methodology. I use a feminist approach with two pillars, situated knowledge and careful research. First is situated knowledge, drawing on the Haraway. So knowledge is never from nowhere. It always comes from a position shaped by experience, context, and identity. So I state like mine. I lived in Iran as a non-Iranian, and I'm of North Korean descent. And I'm an outsider with proximity. So this gives me access to some spaces and blind spots in others. So I do not claim like neutrality. So I name my view and stay alert to its limits. My aim is just to amplify women's voices that are often overlooked, and I'm not speaking for them. And second is care-full research. So this is a kind of like a new concept I recently learned, but participants are not data points. So they're people in relationship. They're my friends, they're my friends' friends. So in this way, researcher treats participants not as data sources, but as people in relationship, building trust, attending to emotion and power, and avoiding harm through ethical sensitivity. So this careful research requires reflexivity about the researcher's own position and interprets participants' stories with respect, never like extracting data from them or consuming them as a mere data. These are my methods. I'd like to use the semi-structured interview, both online and in person. My recruitment method is through the gatekeeper, and I'm doing snowballing, and also I'm contacting to community organizations. And my participant would be women who lived in Iran or North Korea until at least their secondary school years. And my questions are consistent of basically their lived episodes, home, work, society, and school. And I would like to use a lot of vignettes and pictures to draw or to remind participants forgotten memory from their childhood. And my language would be I'm going to interview in English and Persian with Iranian participants and Korean with Korean participants. And I aim to code in inductive way. And care for research. So I'd like to try my best to adopt this care-4 research. So I'm introducing to all of my participants that you can use fully encrypted online platform that they don't require to log in, and they can just copy and paste the address and they can go in, and they and I'm introducing that I'm not using like a cloud-based recorder to protect their data safer, and I'm using the traditional recorder. And another thing is I take the participants' opinion about careful recruiting. So there's a gatekeeper, and I filmed a 5-minute video in Farsi and English with her, talking about my research and what could be their concern and how I would deal with that to make sure they get good information about this research, and also like they can see my face and they can trust me, because I think it's way better to show through video rather than just text or emailing. And participants could choose their preferred nicknames, and they could turn off their camera if they want. And I will make sure that participant will review the interview script later. I will there are 2 lenses, analytical lenses, that I will use for this research. So first is counterconduct from Foucault, the small ways people redirect how they are governed. It is not open protest. It is like bending a rule or rerouting a routine to make room to act. And second is like Butler's resignification. So repeating a norm with a small difference so that the meaning begins to shift. So taken together, these lenses help me to follow how control works in their daily places, such as home, work, and school. And also this helped me to notice tiny moves in care, movement, or speech that can turn control into a bit of leverage. Yeah. And I'm not assuming like that every small move is like resistance, or that small moves automatically grow into a big change. So these effects are often questions. So open question. Sometimes it is reinforced. Sometimes there can be a modest shift. Sometimes a real opening could appear. So in practice, I will look for concrete episodes and read them very closely. When a rule is applied, how someone complies, bans, or redirects it, and what options they see, what risks they take, who is present, and what resources they can use. I haven't started my fieldwork yet, so these tools definitely guide my attention towards those points, but I will refine them once I have my data. This is last and not least. So my current stage is starting my fieldwork. So I would appreciate if you have any guidance or tips or feedbacks on my methodology part specifically. And this is really great network. I always have these questions in my mind that I am from South Korea, but I never really educated in English speaking country before my master's degree. But South Korea is no longer considered as a global South. So I'm just wondering how I position myself. Am I a global South scholar? Am I minor scholar or not? And I would love to get some answers from experts here. And I'd like to find like a suitable non-Western theoretical framework for my research. Like, I think there are definitely like better theoretical framework instead of Foucault and Butler, which were like I was recommended by my supervisors and other academics in the UK at the very first place. But I'm sure that there are more suitable framework in like Korean journal articles or like Indian articles as well. But I don't know like how like do you find like a suitable non-Western theoretical framework? If you have any guidance or tips, please let me know. And the last and not least, I'm seeking for participants. If you know anyone who is from Iran or North Korea, please contact me. Thank you very much for listening.
All right, so thank you very much, Hazel, for your nice presentation. So yeah, it seems to me that your presentation is like the early stage research proposal for your like the PhD project. So it's good to know some like the basic literature and then some conceptual and theoretical foundations and some and then the methodology you wanted to use for your future projects. So good luck with your future projects. So. All right, so now it's time for the discussant. So I will give 5 minutes to each discussant. So please give Hazel useful like the comments, suggestions, and feedback for her projects. So first discussant is Dr. Hyun-Joo Lim. So I will give 5 minutes to you. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Hazel. That was brilliant. I think your project is really interesting, especially the comparative perspectives between two countries. And definitely, as you pointed out, the exploration around micro-level activities of, everyday resistance is something needs to be explored. So I think it's a really, really interesting topic. I think you have covered quite a bit. But I have some questions and stroke suggestions. I mean, these might be already in your thinking and consideration, but for me, I suppose the question is related to the role of or function of this kind of everyday resistance, because especially if you look at the different socio-political and the economic context of two countries, also, I think that what it makes it interesting is, yes, they've got similarities, but they have such a juxtaposition of different kind of components, giving and limiting, allowing and disallowing women to have certain freedoms and non-freedom. Therefore, I suppose it is interesting to see what actually, through the looking at the everyday resistance, I mean, what is it that they want to achieve? Because I think at the end, you mentioned that you don't necessarily assume it's going to lead to certain kind of dramatic transformation or change. But, sometimes women actually, and men as well, do this kind of things just to survive and get by. And other times they have a much more awareness. Therefore, I think it is interesting in relation to that. The other aspects I would be very interested for you to explore is the role of social networks. So especially if you look at, Iranian cases, the mass mobilization, and what actually it kind of encourages women to then translate those kind of mass mobilization into everyday activism. On the other hand, North Korea doesn't really have a history of visible activism, right? Because it's been very strongly suppressed. Therefore, any kind of resistance movement against the North Korean regime took place outside North Korea. So within that kind of regime, it would be really interesting to see what kind of networks, not necessarily, for instance, in North Korean cases, formal networks, but whether women knew each other about what they're doing and how it actually affected their behavior on a daily basis. So yeah, that sort of aspects. And then I think that was what I want to look at. And the other question, you pointed out about gender washing, right? And I think if I remember correctly, I think you kind of suggested that both of these regimes are not necessarily actively involved in gender washing. But if you look at North Korean cases, I mean, you already mentioned, because of the history of Marxism influenced North Korea, gender equality is at the forefront of North Korean government, and also Kim Jong-un actually propagate, gender equality and trying to utilize women in terms of whatever the state interest is. So in that way, I think you need to probably look at North Korean case more critically.
Okay.
And also, in terms of the different components of everyday resistance, what are the kind of things you are thinking of? So for example, when I did my research, my participants mentioned that even just defection, just leaving North Korea itself is a resistance. So there are many people, actually, if you look at a lot of North Korean defectors in the UK and South Korea and other parts of the world, they don't actually involved in, proactive activism. In the UK, actually, a lot of people don't like it because they want to stay quiet, keep quiet. But on the other hand, there are people actually interpret this kind of, action without intending to change anything. Actually, they say it is a resistance because they are actually showing the regime, we can actually do this. We can have a much better life without your help or support outside. So I think looking at, thinking about what kind of things you are looking at, but also things like makeup, hairstyle, wearing jeans, and that kind of things can also be a part of resistance. So I think that would be interesting. And in terms of, I think my time is probably nearly up. Your questions around what kind of theoretical and methodological framework you need to look at outside sort of, develop the Western sort of context. Have you read Spivak's work? Yeah. And Can Subaltern Speak? And also probably looking at, not necessarily, this might not be directly related, but things like indigenous methodology. That could inform your approach, looking something from outside of developed Western context, more from, developing countries and who are on the receiving end and trying to understand something from their perspectives. And also you might want to have a look at something called Nigger-feminism in a Nigerian context.
Okay.
Yeah, so that might actually be able to help you or inform you to looking at the examples you find from Iran and in North Korea to be able to actually explain what they're doing with this kind of a theoretical framework.
Thank you very much.
I will send you some reference. There's some couple of references around micropolitics as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So thank you very much, Dr. Lim, for your very constructive comments. And then Hazel, I will give you some time to respond to the discussant's comments after the comments by the second discussant. So so the second discussant is Dr. Devran Gulel. So I will give you 5 minutes for discussion. Yeah, please.
Got it. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So my name is Devran, and I would like to start by saying I'm really excited for your project. So I really would like to read it as soon as I can. So because you don't come across very often on this topic, like you said in the beginning. I'll start by where our first commentator made the comment on your second question, I believe, if I remember correctly, about where to look. I saw that you discussed Sabah Mahmood's concept, so you're already familiar with that, and then you mentioned some studies on Afghanistan and other countries, like Iraq as well, but I haven't seen any author's name, so I recommend going back to those studies and look at the authors they refer in their theoretical and methodology section, and you can at least it will be the first step on where to look. My comment first, like I was focusing on religious dogmas, like how it exists in Iran and how it doesn't exist in North Korea. And I'm like, I think this is a very exciting in terms of a comparison where you can actually see how patriarchy takes place and emerges in very different contexts, where sometimes disguised under religious dogmas and then sometimes not in North Korea context. So that could be a very interesting comparison there, how patriarchy is disguised in different contexts, different ways. I remember you mentioning, like, in terms of the interviews, I remember you mentioned women who left around the age of middle school. How old is that? May I ask? Like, is it like 13, 14 years old?
No, just like until like 16. So give them to like who at least stayed in Iran or North Korea until they're 16, because to give them to have some time to spend their school systems or like, yeah.
So women who left these countries around the age 16, am I correct there? Okay, in that context,
woman who's still in there or left, it doesn't matter as long as, yeah.
Okay, if you interview women who left, and I think this could be considered part of an act of agency, but I would like you to also talk about the parents' understanding of best interest of their children, because they are the ones probably making the decision to leave, unless the children, teenagers, they haven't left the country on their own. So the context of best interest of children from the point of view of parents might be relevant in that case. And where to look, you had one question. Do you have any contacts with women's NGOs? Like, I see that you're based in Cardiff, like women's NGOs in the UK, for example, because that could be, okay, I know a couple of organizations, so I could send you some information on that. What else I have? Oh yeah, one last point, like, because my current role looks into women's employment and then outside of official paid employment as well, I am curious on how these women on their daily basis, how they negotiate time allocation to do care related work or like housework, house management, because these things take time and they are unpaid. And then these are the areas their agencies might take over, like how they negotiate these roles as well, which are often burden women in these countries as well. Yeah, that's all my comments.
Thank you very much.
All right, so thank you, Devran, Gulel, so for your nice comments and discussions. And then I will give around 3 minutes to Hazel to address the comments and feedback from the two discussants.
Yeah, like mainly just comments, because they're all very useful and valuable insights. Like, yeah, like I'll just like need to read some recommended articles and journals that both you shared. And yeah, I just had one question. So like, I don't know, it's like my chair and discussant is South Korean, and should I see myself as a GlobalSouth scholar or not? I always been. It's a very tricky question, but yeah, and also like, also like many of you recommended some like Spivak's work and other like framework, but I'm also wondering like if like it is even like okay to take some framework from like, for example, in articles in Korean, like written in Korean, like or other languages, like in Farsi, like yeah.
I think there's somebody, would you like to probably contribute? I mean, shall I just wait for that person to respond and then I can add something?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think Bernardo has a question.
Is a question. Okay, can I just then quickly respond to Hazel's question? Yeah.
Bernardo, would you like to ask a question? You raise your hand. You are muted.
It's just a suggestion for literature, so you know.
All right.
I mean, in terms of Hazel's questions around how sort of Hazel's position should be considered in terms of global South and North, I suppose, I mean, do we have to be kind of either or? I mean, you can actually, in my view, I mean, to be honest, with this research as well, you know, you will probably find, I mean, that would be more interesting, actually, looking at a little bit of nuance that, you know, and the subtleties. So even your positionality, you actually have got multiple positionalities, right? So in some ways, you will have advantages of, you know, global North. But at the same time, there are other aspects still. If you look at, you know, feminist literature and, for instance, social sciences, it's pretty much, you know, dominated by developed Western scholars, still male domain. So in that sense, you know, you could actually point out those kind of, in a way, ambiguities that you actually have. So I don't necessarily think you need to try to kind of figure out whether do I belong to global South or North, but actually you can say these are the kind of positions you have, and you are critically aware of it.
Okay.
So that's my suggestion.
Thank you. Yeah, that's clear.
Yeah, I saw some like they're raising hands there, so I will give a chance for them to say first. So Bernardo, right? So do you have any words to the Hazel?
Yeah, it's just in terms of a suggestion of Hazel was asking about suggestion of literature that is non-Western. There's this tradition in Latin America of what is called testimonio, which is women talking in the military regimes. So there is this whole literature on that, but I would suggest, I was looking at my notes, John Beverly has a book on testimony on the politics of truth, and talks about how the woman in these military regimes, how they try to deconstruct the colonial epistemologies and Western hierarchy. So if that, I don't know if that might be useful for you, but when you're asking if, you know, something outside the Western tradition, it's something that came to my mind. But amazing project, and it seems very interesting, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. I shared my email in the group chat. Can you actually type, because I probably don't remember the title. Thank you.
And there's also the raising hand by Devran. So you may say something. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I was thinking about this social media access you mentioned.
Yeah.
And I previously published on how women negotiate their agencies in Turkey in Islamist families, about Islamist dress codes.
Okay.
And the context I used was human rights, European Convention on Human Rights. So it's a different aspect in terms of violence in their lives. But where I got access to more than 500 women's life stories. And when I missed his name, but when the other participant mentioned testimonials, this website where women can share their life stories anonymously. In a way, it was a social media website where you can access testimonials. So this is where I got access to hundreds of women's life stories. And I'm curious if something similar exists in Iran or North Korea, and perhaps through your interviewees, you can also question that and also do your own research if it exists, or yeah, they might be helpful. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. So, Norman, do you have any question or comment?
Yeah. Just let me first this, because I need to the recording as well.
Yeah, you raised your hand, so
because I'm handling the screen things as well, you know, so that those who are watching, they should be able to understand. Thank you very much. Thank you, Hazel, for focusing on two most important countries. There are many other countries as well. You see, Yemen, Cuba, Russia. Nobody wants to talk about that, and it's very good that you focus on these two countries. Good or bad, that's a complete different discussion. I think you the question in response to your question, should I see myself as the as a scholar from the global south? I think that's, to be honest, this question itself is we need to be very critical of these dichotomies: global south, global north. I think these concepts were given to us by the countries that are not supposed to produce knowledge about other countries. But you see, for the sake of understanding, it's fine to use that thing. But what is most important is to give equal opportunity to all stakeholders to give their voice, to give their input. I am aware of, you know, and I think that's something the network is very mindful of, giving equal opportunities to all sides in any conflict, any dispute. But in response to your question, and I think in addition to what I just said, I think when you think about giving equal opportunities to all stakeholders, not only those who are in the victim category, but also those who are allegedly on the other side, you know, those who are seen as the perpetrators, that becomes very critical, very difficult, especially when you are in a country where there are sanctions, which you just mentioned. So in that case, I think the use of forums in countries that are not under sanctions, for example, in case of North Korea, countries like Indonesia, countries like Cuba, countries like China, these are very, those countries where, you know, if you showcase your research, probably you may come across people who can give you some critical voice. Other than that, there's a danger, there's a slight danger, and I think I can see this thing, especially in you know, the publications we have in the global north, that either you have something from those who are not, you know, who didn't feel anything in that context, and I am aware that, you know, you do not need to feel anything or face anything in order to be in a position to produce something. But and the other group of people who produce knowledge is those who do produce something critical, but in a context shaped by all those discourses that are produced in this country. So we know, to be honest, we people like me who are not from North Korea or Iran, we know nothing about these countries. What we know about these countries is when we put the word in the Google, and you know how the algorithms work. Nothing from their side feed into. So I think the most important thing is how best you can, you know, make efforts to create opportunities, equal opportunities for all stakeholders to give their input, and then you can do your judgment. Thank you very much.
All right, so Dr. Lim, so yeah, do you have any additional words to her? Yeah. Hazel.
Yeah, I mean, just listening to what Nauman said, actually, it came to my mind that do you actually need to try to clarify whether you belong to Global South or North? Why don't you actually approach from insider and outsider perspectives? For example, if you look at my book on North Korean women and defection, there is a section I actually discuss about my position. So it might be actually better for you to trying to kind of position yourself from, you know, that sort of perspective, which part of you are actually insider, but other parts are outsider, and that might be actually work out better. And the second is actually question, because when I look at your presentation, not the one you actually presented, the one Nauman shared, there was a one data collection which he said you are going to do a discourse analysis of propaganda. But it doesn't look like from the presentation you did was actually you were just focusing on semi-structured interviews. So I want to just clarification on that.
So it's like at the moment it's quite flexible, but when I start my field work and if the propaganda like is keep mentioning by the participants interview, I will again start analyzing the propaganda. That was my plan actually. Yeah, but I just need to do like a couple or two or three interviews first and then see from there. That was my plan. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, in my view, I have doing a bit of, I mean, you can't do too much, but analyzing some of the kind of, propaganda materials, looking at, you know, those kind of analysis and comparing with the women's kind of interview data would be quite interesting.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
In my view.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so the time is almost up, but actually we have a large turnout today. So it is now already roughly 30 participants. Yeah, so I will give a chance for the audience to say something if there are any questions. So audiences, do you have any questions, comments, or suggestions? Nope.
Moohyung, I have one comment to make.
Okay. Please.
I truly appreciate your presence here, you know, attending this session and chairing this session at around 12:30, you know, Korean time. So it's I appreciate that.
Yeah.
No problem. So yeah, I'm happy to join this seminar. So all right. So then now it's I will give the Hazel the last chance to give some final words. Yeah, to the discussants or panelists or final words.
Thank you just very much for your time. And it's just really incredible and very heartwarming that you all like spend this precious time for listening my research. And that's encouraged me to definitely keep my 2 case studies, because some PhD students actually drop 1 case in the end because of the time limit. But I will really try my best to keep these 2 case studies, and I'd like to make a really good contribution to academia and as a South Korean researcher as well. Thank you very much.
Great. So so then now is the time to wrap up our session. So thank you very much once again, Hazel, for such an insightful and stimulating your presentation. So I believe that your work will make a valuable contribution to the broader discussion on women's resistance in authoritarian countries. So good luck with your project. So the writing the dissertation is hard, challenging, I know, but it will be meaningful and fruitful. So the best of luck with your project. And also my heartfelt thanks to our great discussants, Dr. Lim and Dr. Gulel. So they provide a really thoughtful and engaging feedback. And also I'd like to thank all the participants in this session. Once again, we have a large turnout today. So I'm happy to chair today's session. The GlobalSouth Network warmly welcomes PhD students from all disciplines around the world to share their research and receive interdisciplinary feedback. So if you're interested in presenting your work or taking part in the future session, please contact Nauman, Dr. Nauman Riyad, the founder and convener of the network, at the email address shared in the chat box. And the next week, at the same time, we'll be joined by Braulio Garduno Ibarra, PhD candidate at the School of Law at the University of Liverpool, who will present his PhD project titled Unveiling the Right to a Social and International Order enshrined in Article 28 of the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights. Yeah, that will be held on November 12th from 3 to 4 p.m. in the UK time. Yeah, that's it. So until then, take care and have a good rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.